Yeah, we're live. Excuse me. How's everybody doing today or tonight? I'm a little late. It's about 8 o'clock, so I'm a little bit late. We just took the dogs over swimming. They were digging it. This is the first time for the year that they've gone over swimming in the pool, so they were very, very excited. They didn't forget how golden retrievers don't forget how to swim. But we're here to talk about the AMR Supercharger on the XFI. I have that video up now. I put it up today. If you guys want to take a look, if you haven't already, if you have, please let me know and let me know what you thought. It was pretty awesome stuff. There was more than a few doubters there at West Tech. More than a few that didn't care for the car at all. You know, it is pretty rough, but that really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you have. You got 1 liter Mafias in the house. Finally, 1 liter Mafia stuff, right, Rags? It doesn't matter what you have. The goal of everything is to make whatever you have better. So it doesn't matter. Oh, just swap we could swap a K series in there. We could do all of that stuff. We could put an LS in there, put it in the back. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff. That's not what this is. This is what I just did. This was the NA motor. This was the nitrous motor. This was the AMR blower, and it'll be the revised AMR blower too, which is what I want to talk about tonight, because we have some plans, as I mentioned in the video. There are, you know, whenever you, and if guys have been to the dynos, if you've been to an engine dyno or a chassis dyno, a lot of times when you go there, and this still happens to me, even though I do it all the time, this happened recently when we did the LT1. I came back and talked to Jim Hall and said, "Hey, look, this seems weird to me." He said, "Yeah, it should be doing something different." And then we get to talk about it and figure out what we want to do to make it do that. Same thing with the Metro. After running this, I'm like, well, you know, we try to adapt and improvise and overcome as best we can when we're there doing the dyno test, and we're, you know, pretty good at trying to figure out ways to make it do what we want it to do, at least temporarily. And even if it's not perfect, even if it's not right, it's right now. So we can make a lot of those things happen, like we did with the pulse. How did you guys like the pulse width modulated? That was basically just a solenoid and remote starter kind of thing. And all I did was pulse width modulate using my thumb the solenoid for the fuel. So as you might imagine, the time delay between me seeing something on the air fuel curve as he's making a run, and me cycling this thing, and, you know, the button triggering and the solenoid triggering, and then the fuel flowing, and then all the fuel going through and then out the exhaust to where we have the O2 sensor, and then the reading, and me seeing that adjusting, and then me trying to adjust for that. You know, I'm not as fast as the Super RICHIE closed loop mode is not, even though it was enabled, it's not that precise. It's not that quick, but it was fun nonetheless. It was to try to keep up with that, and just laying into it and having it be on all the time, way too rich. And it would have been okay for some part of the RPM range, but not the whole thing. And so you got to do that a little bit and then let off, and then do it a little bit and then let off, and then do so it was, you know, it is what it is. It was fun. It was super cool to do it. And the one thing I could tell you, and one of the other things that I want to do when we run this again, which we're definitely going to, I'm going to get a new AMR blower. I'm going to order that up tomorrow, and we'll get a new AMR Supercharger, and hopefully it will be in good enough shape. We're not spinning it very fast. I needed to see what the pulley ratios are, but we're not spinning it that fast. But I spun it really fast when we ran the LS motor in it, and I'm sure that was probably what caused its demise. The other thing we're thinking about is I want to run, either if we run it in the configuration that's in now, I want to put a blow-off valve on it so that we're not building positive pressure while the thing is sitting there idling. It will definitely help with charge temperature during the initial roll-in, and it will help with the thing with its ability to idle. The other thing that needs to happen is, even if we are able to be successful in tuning the throttle body that's there with the injector size that's there and the fuel pump that's there, all of those things need to be upgraded. I mean, if we're going to make some power, which we made 10 or 12 or something, and we made more than that with the nitrous. But the nice thing about the nitrous is not relying really on the fuel pump. I mean, it is to some extent. It's flowing that fuel, but it is adding its own oxygen, and I guess that's not correct. I guess it is relying on the fuel pump, and since we're running in that instance, we were running the fuel pressure up anyway. It actually made life harder on the pump now to think about it. So that was an incorrect statement. I for some reason I was thinking that it was a nitrous only kind of thing, but even then it wouldn't make any sense. So it has to be the fuel pump. But at any rate, we're going to have to change the fuel pump. That's the upshot of all this, is that the factory fuel pump isn't going to be enough. The nice thing is, though, that the Metro fuel pump is, it's pretty easy to upgrade. We can upgrade it with almost anything. In fact, I need to put another fuel pump in the truck, and so I can take the stock pump out of the truck and put it in, because the stock pump in the truck is good for 250 or 300 horsepower at the tire, and so, which is way more than we would ever make from this thing. So that's not a problem. And especially if we were running, with the factory fuel pressure is pretty low on these things. So, and we made life harder on the pump by running the fuel pressure up. But we also need more injector. So fuel pump is part of the equation, and to supply the necessary fuel to the injector. But the injector also has to be big enough, because if you run out of duty cycle of the injector, regardless of what the pump is, unless you're jacking the pressure way up, you're just not going to get any more fuel flow. So the way to cure that is one of the things I want to try is put the Holley, the 1100 single throttle body. Basically, it's a replacement for the one barrel carburetor that they run on the early inline 6-cylinder, the 300 inline 6-cylinder Fords. This is a direct replacement for that, and so we're going to put that in place of it. So there are two ways to go about this. One is I can make a simple adapter to adapt that throttle body, the Ford one, or the Holley one for the Ford, to the stock intake manifold on the Metro. The other way is, obviously, we could put the throttle body, we could feed the blower with the throttle body. So we're throttling the blower basically. And then we would but we would still need we would need a bypass valve then if we were going to do that. But I'm wondering how that's going to work with fuel. I don't know if I've ever done that with supplying fuel through there. But at any rate, we can run that on either side of the blower. We can blow through it, or we can draw through it. And in either case, we're going to get charge cooling associated with the fuel delivery that's going to happen. It's either going to happen right at the manifold, which is there's enough manifold runner length for the charge cooling to happen, or it's going to happen going through the blower, which should also help cool the blower. But the other concern for the AMR blower is these blowers, when they were originally done, I don't think were designed to run fuel through them. Although I think that some of the VW guys are running fuel through them. So will it last? Will it last a long time? All of that is in question. But at any rate, we need to make some changes to it. So we need to get a blower that's working, that's not all scarred up and damaged like this one was. We need to get extra fuel, pump, and injector, and then the ability to tune it, not Super RICHIE style. not that doesn't work and doesn't have some merit. Mark, what's going on, man? But it would be much better to be able to actually tell it, hey, look, we want, I can add this much fuel and get this kind of air fuel, and I can run this much timing. That would be much better. And so that way, when we run it, we just run it and it goes, wow, and makes the power ring go, okay, that it's good. And then we'd have to worry about, once we run it, the other thing that I want to do that we didn't do this time is I wanted to monitor what the charge temperature is. It really wouldn't be a fair representation now, because we know that the blower was damaged and it was really hot. You could tell by putting your hand on the tube between the AMR supercharger and the chili bomb intercooler. That tube was very hot, almost so you didn't want to touch it. After the chili bomb, very cool, not a problem at all. So the chili bomb was in full effect and doing its job. But what I want to do, obviously, we want to monitor that and see what the charge temperature is. We want to see what it is coming out of the blower at whatever boost level it decides that it's going to supply, given the pulley ratio and the power output of the NA motor, and then also blowing through the. And it might be interesting blowing through the intercooler. But it might be interesting also to monitor the boost coming out of the blower and then going into the motor, see if there's a difference, like what kind of loss we see. Because on a blower, you'll see some loss in the intercooler and that length of charge pipe and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see that. The other thing that we can do that I didn't do is we can make bigger inlets and discharge tubes. I had them, we just didn't run them on this setup, but it probably would be a good idea. It would be good to have nicer ones than I did, because I just did some that I thought would work for flowing. But it would be nice to have 3D printed ones or that kind of thing where we have some kind of radius entry and stuff would probably be better. And I think what we're doing for the I don't know that the Metro deserves that, given what the rest of the Metro looks like, but that would also help it. We know that it changes the flow rate of the blower because we've done that test already. So if it changes the flow rate of the blower at a given blower speed, we should see an increase in airflow should equate to an increase in boost and an increase in power. So that would be nice. Otherwise, I don't really have other pulleys to run. I don't know. Somebody let me know if you guys if I have a couple of, like Mark, if I have a couple of Metro and Suzuki Swift and those kinds of motors, if there are different dampers, there are different crank pulleys basically that would allow us to change from what we have now on this Metro XFI. Because I didn't know if the XFI has one size and the non-XFI has another, or if the 4-cylinder bolts right on, or any of those things. What is the interchangeability of some of that stuff? I'm not that familiar with it. So maybe another factory one would work, and we could increase the boost if we wanted to. I quite honestly, I would be pretty happy with getting, 50% or more of power. And if we got more than that, that would be also awesome. Obviously, if we run this and it works well next time with some sort of management system on it, whether it's the Haltech or the Holley, and we get it to work and we have additional fuel, that also means we can run E85 in it. And I've not seen a blower application not respond to E85. So we would definitely do that as well. But it was very cool running the Metro. I went and bought a hose from the guys, a Lowe's hose. And I went and bought that so we could run plumb water through it, and I could just clamp that stuff on to the chili bomb. Like I said, the chili bomb definitely was working well. I'll flush it out and make sure that there's not material in there. It doesn't look like there was a lot of material from the blower. It just was hard to spin and stuff. So it was, I'm sure, even though we saw a fairly reasonable percentage gain in power relative to the NA power output, given the boost level, if you math that stuff out, if you look at 42 horsepower and 4.5 pounds and then a 12 horsepower gain, you could see that that's a reasonable power gain given the losses that we would expect from driving the blower. And then the losses would be even greater driving it because of how hard it is to spin, which it shouldn't be. Before, it was nice and easy to spin. It did have one chunk out of it, and I was worried about that when we first ran it. I'm like, that's probably not good. We tried it anyway because, that's how we roll. And again, it's a Metro. We didn't care too much about it. But nothing came apart on that side of it. It just started, kind of grinding together. But I'm looking forward to it, and I think the next time it just runs. The thing that there were a couple of good successes with this thing. One, the Super RICHIE blower mount and slider assembly, all of that worked fine. There was no belt slippage. The boost was nice and consistent, and the blower went on, and it just made run after run after run, and we never even had to look at it after that. After its initial installation, it just worked, and we were fighting all the other things, but not that too. So that one we could check off the list, which was kind of nice. Okay, let's see what you guys got going on. We need to get a poll going. Okay, should we run the next test as a draw through? Let's see, next test on the AMR500. XFI. Should we run the next test on the AMR XFI as a draw through instead of a blow through? Let's see what guys are thinking. Eric, 409, 409, 409. Get away, what's going on? Aaron. It was trying, just didn't have the fueling it needed. Yeah, it did not have proper fueling all of the time. SC, South Carolina? Southern California? Be interesting if you did your engine dynos with 4 cylinders and inline 6s. You mean like a whole bunch of the other ones? Have you not looked at the rest of the videos on the channel? Thumb speed modulated, TSM. There we go. That's good. Points for that. Greetings. Mark, what's going on? Is turbo and V6 possible? Yeah, you can run a turbo on any motor. You have other issues though. How are you going to get enough fuel to it? And how are you going to tune? Probably even more important. Usually the fuel is not an issue. A simple FMU or bigger fuel pump, that kind of thing is usually doable. Unless it's a non-return style fuel system, which a lot of late model stuff is. But how are you going to take timing out of it? And I don't think I mentioned that in the video, but we took 4 or 5 degrees of timing out of it too. In retrospect, it probably shouldn't have, but we wanted to be safe. I love the nitrous on mine back in the day. Yeah, the nitrous were good. No fuel on nitrous. Yeah, we just did no nitrous on the fuel. ITBs would be cool, but tough for the AMR. Yeah, you can't run. Are you talking about an IR setup? I don't know how you run an IR with boost in it without having a common plenum. Any possibility of running a blower off of a junkyard 3800 on a 1 liter? You mean an M90 off, running an M90 on there? I think that's probably a little on the big side for a 1 liter. It's gonna have really, really high boost at almost any blower speed. Time to crank in the timing. Not enough power to turn the blower. It obviously does have enough power. Yeah, this supercharger can support, according to the airflow, it can support 150 horsepower. So it's way more than we're trying to make with this thing. Is there a carb option for the motor? Yeah, I think that the early ones were carbureted. Whoever asked about the 3.7 liter V6 Chrysler, that engine had a hard enough time just staying together stock. Wow. I've replaced more valve springs on those. I would rather start there and then add ring gap. But every motor likes boost. That's right. South Carolina, 20 minutes from Charlotte. Very cool. It'd be cool to see a draw through. The draw through thing would be interesting. We'd have to work a little bit on the throttle setup, but since we disconnected a lot of things when we ran on the dyno, I didn't really cover that in the video, but we disconnected we plugged the brake line because I didn't have a valve for that. What else did we disconnect? A couple of the vacuum lines we just plugged and disconnected. It ran much better, obviously, after when we were doing the nitrous testing and the NA testing when we hooked up the map sensor. And I think that part of the problem was that even at idle, when the blower is blowing and we don't have a bypass valve or a blow-off valve, that it's seeing 100 kPa. It's actually seeing more than 100 kPa. And so it doesn't really like that. Although, no, it can't see 100 kPa because the throttle's closed, right? So that doesn't make any sense. So I wonder what's making it not idle very well. Recirculating the blow-off air with the fuel in it would be interesting. Yeah. Draw through is proven working and probably the easiest. I don't know if you care about longevity for the gas through the blower just for testing purposes. Really just for testing. I would like to drive it around, at least drive it around the block or whatever like that. But and I could do a little reservoir, or I could just put a small front mounted air-to-air intercooler on it too. Yes, on the draw through, if you mount the Holley 1100 on the inlet, the heat would be reduced and the noise will be reduced by 75%. The blower was loud even when we ran it, although we were running it fairly fast, but it was the blower was loud even when we were running it on the LS just by itself. So was it blower surging? You mean like, was it surging at idle? The idle was not good with the blower on there. It took a little bit to get it going. It was not happy. With the nitrous on there, it was fine. Even when we richened it way up, even when we made it like, put it in the 10s, the idle was still fine. Yeah, funny bike. That's what I'd be worried about. A backfire with excessive fuel in there would be, I think, problematic. I think my AC is being a supercharger with no intercore. It's been hot here. It would have to be a bypass valve for the draw through, unless you want to make it spicy with a blow off valve. Good air fuel for flames. Yeah, if you're spitting fuel out, it's probably not recommended. I had a friend that drove a Geostorm, like a V8 truck. Did he like haul stuff in it, or did he jump it? I've seen lots of rally videos. That's what Troy was saying from West Tech. Troy's good people. I like going down and visiting those guys. That's what Troy's saying. We need to rally race this thing, because I think he had seen some rally videos with it, with a Metro jumping it and stuff. You know, because if you've got a motor or a car that you don't care that much about, then, you know, why not? Do a Mazda Millennia supercharger. Those are harder to find. Were there ever any factory M45 superchargers? I know there were M62s on stuff, the early Bonnevilles and things like that, but were there ever any M45s? I know that Jackson Racing was using those for their kits, but I just didn't know if there were any factory ones. And obviously the cool thing is, if you got the blower working correctly, then you'd add a turbo to it, right? I mean, I'm going to run a turbo on this, because if we can get the blower to work, we can easily get a turbo to work. Ultimately, this car is going to get the turbo sprint motor in it swapped into it with the Haltech, and that's what we're going to run. That will be the Bonneville motor. We will run that. But I still think if you have a blower on the motor, you got to use it to spool the turbo up. Because if we're going to put I probably should put ring gap and stuff in this thing if I'm going to do that. The Mini had an M45. It did. I would have thought that would have been a 62. All my turbo draw through lawnmower singles and twins, they had no blow off valve or bypass. Yeah, because the turbo doesn't have any load at idle, and it's not really flowing. So I'd like to see the AMR in a smart car. There is an AMR group. I mean, if you go online, there's lots of those being used. SLK 230 had a factory M45. Why was I thinking that was a twin screw blower? That it was an IHI blower on the Mercedes?
I think you and I need to go into the MU to get your tablet placement.
Yeah, that's the thing about bringing the dogs back from swimming. They then smell like wet dog. Didn't Volvo use the M45 on the T5 engine? Might be Mr. I thought that those were turbos. Should we run the next test on the AMR500 as a draw through instead of a blow through? Most of the guys are saying yes. It would probably, I mean, I guess it would be just as easy to do it that way. We just have to route the fuel line and stuff, which is not a big deal. And then the throttle linkage. But I still have to do an adapter and an elbow probably for the, I don't know if that, it'd be interesting to see if that throttle body that I have, I think it could be mounted sideways. I think it could lay on its side. I don't think it has to be up and down. There's probably not a fuel bowl or anything. Tim, what's going on? There's a guy in Sloppy Central that has a bunch of those and 2 ZZ Superchargers, which I want both. Cool. Do you use a map sensor? If so, does it read correctly? I asked because the noisy blower, maybe it's pulsing air in the intake. I'm certain that we are using a map sensor because the factory has a map sensor. But I don't know. The map sensor's got to be taking a reading on the bottom side of the blade. It's got to be in the intake manifold below the throttle body because otherwise it wouldn't ever read vacuum. And so if we have the vacuum cracked open a little bit, for drivability or idle, I mean, let's take it idle. Why would this thing make the idle so bad? Is that solely the load from the blower? Maybe I don't think that's it. Blow through definitely solves the BOV, the blow off valve fuel issue. Yeah, it does. There's no the fuel only gets delivered kind of at the end after the boost. And I'm not sure why he had the gentleman I bought the car from. I'm not sure why he had the map sensor disconnected. I think he did it so the thing would idle when he started it, when he'd sell it to me. But the thing didn't idle well because it had no timing in it. It had 0 degrees of timing in it. And once we put the timing at least 5 and it ran best at 8, and we say best by 1 or 2 horsepower, whatever, it's not very much. But that's as a percentage, that's a reason, an amount, a measurable amount. But if there's no timing in it, it didn't run very well. And so if you disconnect that, it goes to full timing because it thinks it's that wide open throttle. So the idle timing is a lot higher. And so it idles higher. But once you plug everything in, the thing idles fine. It starts right up and hit the like button. That's right. You got to go sleep. All right. It is late. If I meet him, I'll gift you one. Say thanks. Yeah. Let me know who it is. Maybe Matt knows him. I think that all is bad because the extra wind from the AMR. Try to replicate the crappy idle with a leaf blower to your hat. Actually, I think that I need to, now that we mention it, the idle might have gotten worse when we took the air cleaner off. So I'm wondering if it's one of those fittings that were disconnected, one of the hoses that were disconnected when we take the air cleaner off. The air cleaner does have an air temperature sensor in it, but we unscrewed that from the filter, from the air filter assembly, and then just hung it so that it would be showing a reasonable temperature. Got to catch up and watch this. Time for a tune-up. The XFI has already been tuned up. It has new plugs and wires and cap and rotor, so all that's right. All of that's fresh. No, doggies are in attack mode. They did good in the pool today. My mom had some tennis balls, so we could throw tennis balls in there, and they were loving it. Although they kept wanting to steal each other's tennis balls. But one thing I didn't do is I don't remember now what the plug gap was. I think I brought the plug gap down for the nitrous, if I remember right. Not that, it's 50% of power, at least on the nitrous it was, or they're somewhere near their 40%. This was less than that, 25%. So let's do some math here. Let's see. So 30.6% boost, but the power gain was, so increased pressure by 30.6%. And then 12 divided by 42. We increased power output by 28.5%. So that's kind of in line. The rest of the percentage, you'd think you could attribute that to the drive the blower kind of thing. I wrecked the Turbo LS Dakota. I told you about it at El Mirage this weekend. Oh, I hit the timing equipment 169 and proceeded to flip 4 times. You okay, man? That's a serious hit. It's a big shunt. CJ, so you put one of those electric fans for the intake tube and it made it idle bad? It definitely will if it has a mass air meter. We know that happens. Even fan wash over and around a mass air meter, even if it has a filter assembly on the top of it, can definitely throw off the reading. It doesn't like that. But this is just a map sensor, though. How much boost did it see? 4.5 pounds was about where it was. And we know that the blower was going bad. I mean, you could tell by the noise and by the drag. But when Ish was in it and we first put the blower on and he rolled into it, we saw some like 8 or 9 pounds. And so, but it didn't have any fuel because we hadn't done the Super RICHIE trick yet. Good, little sore and bruise. I'm glad to hear that. The code is finished. Yeah, they don't like being flipped over and stuff. Did it just get sideways on you, or were you just drifting over toward the timing marker or something? eBay special intake fans back in the day. Yeah. I'm kind of curious. It almost makes me also want to build like an off-road exhaust for this thing, like a test exhaust, so that we could run it. I just want to see if the rest of the exhaust, like if the car is going to drive around and get registered and stuff, obviously it has a cat and everything on it. I just don't know anything about that. One thing I know about that exhaust, it has a leak in it somewhere. So the exhaust is going to have to be fixed. But I would like to test it and make sure that I don't know if that cat is clogged. I don't know anything about that setup. How inhibiting is a stock exhaust? I don't know. I've never seen. I don't see a lot of this kind of testing for that. And, I don't know that guys are wanting to do that. I know with the Sprint stuff, and obviously with the Dodge 2.2 exhaust, the turbo things are definitely beneficial. Back pressure test. Yeah, we can do a back pressure test. I just don't have anything to compare it to. I'm building Model 3 LS1 with a 90 millimeter fast. Will a stock 75 millimeter be a significant restriction? Internet says no, but I have my doubts. So why would you put a 90 millimeter fast and then put a 75 millimeter throttle body on there? It would, 75 millimeters is definitely going to cost you power, but I don't know how much power your 383 wants to make. I pushed it too much. I got out of shape. Would have pulled the plug sooner. It's literally the last vehicle down the track. Wanted that big number, yeah. Did you have a? Does that thing have a parachute on it? Streamer pipe out of the hood. Yeah, where there a fender exit, right? That's what I need. Is a fender exit. Trying to determine injector size on my Gen 3 60408. Duty cycle has me second guessing. 42 pounders, ported 799s, comp 456 cam, twin throttle body cross ram. If this is an NA motor, 42 times 16 is 672 horsepower. You're not making that much with that. You're good. Yeah, 42s will make good power. Fender exit point straight up to reduce wheelies. To reduce wheelies in the 49 horsepower front wheel drive car. That would be a neat trick. Fender exits. Yeah, I wouldn't do that for driving around. Just, just to get the chicks. Yeah, it has a chute. I think I pulled it, but can't confirm that. SETA kept the GoPro for now. Okay. Well, was the chute out when you stopped, or when on a big crash, sometimes it can come loose. Oh, you lost consciousness? Oh, that is a big shunt. Dude, I'm glad you're okay. Hood exit with the tractor flap, yeah. I don't know that this makes enough exhaust to lift up the tractor flap. It would have to be something really lightweight, like a titanium one or a carbon fiber one. This has has the factory 12-inch wheels on it. Stage 1 cam, ported to 43, 75 millimeter throttle bodies. I already have it. How well is that 75 millimeter throttle body going to seal against that 90 millimeter opening? Is that going to work? Fender exit is a necessity on this thing. I know that would look cool, especially if we did the stainless one in a cool slash cut deal and it was like a 5-incher or something. Building a junkyard LQ9, and my battery was 799s or 317s. Is I'll be putting an MP112 on it. Well, the 799s, you would start off making more power, but an LQ9 is going to have 317s on it. So do you want to spend more money on 799s if you don't have them? The chute was out, okay. Trailer wheels, box trailer. Yeah, they're tiny. Sloppy stage 3 cam and an LQ9. Okay, that's a good size cam. Dare to keep engines off of nitrous. Steve Morris is not a nitrous guy. I thought that he's a race motor guy. 75 millimeter mass airflow meter this whole time. It's late here on the East Coast. Okay. Yeah, an easy way to tell how restrictive that is get a vacuum gauge and measure it. All you have to do is hook up a vacuum gauge with a T between the mass air meter and the throttle body and see how much vacuum's there. If there's vacuum there, you're losing power. If there's no vacuum there, you're not losing any power. Dave, Steve Morris is a turbo guy. The 70 style letterbox will add 17 horsepower is like big. That's big metro power change. Just subbed. I'm on the process of carb swapping a 6.0 my C10. That's good. There's lots of good carbureted intakes for those. and lots of good camshafts. Speaking of camshafts, I have camshafts in stock, ready to go out for everybody. I think I've sent out all of the cams for everybody. Frank, if Frank's here, I sent out your injectors. Nelson, I sent out your camshafts. I think we're all good. He doesn't like nitrous, boost everything. Yeah, I get that. It's a lot. You can make a lot of power with turbos, that's for sure. I have all the heads, 799s, ported, unlimited 317s, 706s. So put the ported ones on there then. Are you trying to max out the blower? Are you going to port the blower and put a big inlet on it and stuff? Oh, yeah. I had a long night last night. I was up at 3 or so doing work. Justin, is the 75 millimeter mass airflow meter, is that the stock size? How close to catastrophic failure is the first AMR blower? The one that I have is close, I'm sure. It's rubbing against each other, so it's bad. Did you get rid of all the small block forward stuff? No, Westex still has small block forward intake manifolds for sale. I think somebody has spoken for the heads that they had. Yeah, the blower is really, really loud. And you saw, I showed video of what the inside of the blower looked like in the video. Yeah, there's interference enough between the rotors that they're touching each other. It's not good. Not good. It would be okay if I was running diesel fuel through them, then we can lubricate. I kind of now want to take it apart and see what, just see what's in there. Need to repair the ported 799s, broke a valve and damaged one hole. The blower just gives me a little more power for burnout masters at power cruise. Okay. Yeah, the blower should give you a lot of more power for burnouts. Yeah, and I'm sure spinning that blower with a limited amount of power on the, that's developed by that 1 liter 3-cylinder motor, that it will notice the change in drag with that thing. Because when we first put it on there, it was high idling, and then it stopped doing that. That should have been our clue, right? But you just soldier on, and it is making boost. So if it's making boost, you got to keep going. It's not making all the boost, just making some of the boost. That's okay. That's a fun video. I like that stuff. I was looking back through the videos on the channel and looking at some of the blower stuff, and the AMR blower, when I did the video is up from the AMR blower when I did the flow testing with it. That's a very, very popular one, and so is the Cadillac blower that I put on there. And then all of the low dollar things are kind of popular. Power Cruise USA, Burnout Masters. The burnout competitions at LS Fest those are really popular. Those had quite a crowd. Although I didn't see anybody just sit there and melt them down to the rim. They were more doing donuts and stuff. If the blower is slowly eating itself, isn't the metal going into the airflow? Yeah, it should. It should be. Hopefully the chili bomb's catching all of it. Haltech should do the trick. Their helpline's the best. Good. Having spoken with them, they seem like good people. Aussie style. That's right. Just sit there and just melt it till it catches on fire, kind of. Also more parasitic power loss. Yeah, it definitely has more. There's definitely more power required to drive this blower now than there was. I can tell just by spinning it. And we put a socket on the drill to spin it when the blower was off too. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's not spinning it nearly as good as it did before. Because one of the things I was concerned with, and I'm glad that I realized this when I was doing it, but I was making the bracket to mount the blower, and I utilized part of the L angle bracket that I used to mount the supercharger to the LS so that I could drive it and then measure the airflow and the boost and that stuff. And I used that piece. All I had to do was chop it and section it and slot it so that it would, move back and forth. Once I did that, the thing worked fantastic. But like I said, it would be pretty easy to increase the airflow on that if we put better, instead of those composite or plastic inlets on those blowers. But when I spun it before that, before we were doing the testing, nice and free and easy. And then after that, not so much. Not sure if it's just a camera, but the 3-cylinder sounds like a 3800. Well, it would sound like half of a 3800, right? Keep my LQ4 complete. Spun rod bearing that have the sloppy stage 2. I'll have the LQ9 sloppy stage 3 NA before the MP112 swap at the event. See power differences. So are you going to do that and dyno it, CJ? That would be cool. New Chevy Trax has a 3-cylinder. Yeah, there's another 3-cylinder that's making a lot of power. Is it a Toyota? Is it a Yaris or something? Something has a 3-cylinder in it. I couldn't hear the motor over the blower. No, you can't. All you can hear is a blower. I mean, ear protection was a really good idea with the noise that blower was making. It was not friendly. No dyno. But how are you gonna tune it? How are you gonna get the air fuel and timing right? Just gonna wing it? Just go all super Richie on it? This Metro motor ran with air fuel as rich as, in the 8s, and it still ran. And at 17. So it would run with all those. Not well, but AMR gear should be a nice blue color. Oh, Terminator X Max. Okay. So you have a O2 sensor that you can read. You know if you can carb swap a TBI and keep the computer control distributor? I don't know. As long as it's only taking a map sensor, I would think that you could. But I don't know what other control it's taking. The computer control distributor might be looking for things like TPS and stuff. And if it is, and the computer's not seeing all that, then it could be problematic. If it's only based on map, then you could get away with it. Instead of running water through the intercooler, how about sealed ammonia? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I think we're good enough with ambient water on the dyno. I carb swapped the 2.8 Fiero and had to swap the distributor. We did that on the LT1 also. I mean, that one didn't have I don't know what I'm thinking. That one didn't have a distributor in it anyways. But when we do the Gen 6 454s, we get rid of the computer controlled distributor. Stock 96302 eBay GT42. What considerations are recommended? I don't know what you mean. Is this going to be an EFI motor? You're going to need, if it's an EFI motor, you need big enough injectors, big enough fuel pump. You're going to have to be able to tune it. Is the rest of the whole thing stock intake, stock throttle body, all that stuff? All right, Eric, we'll see you, man. Zoomy header poking out the fender. I kind of would like to do a header for it. That would be cool. I made one for the Sprint Turbo, but to mount a turbo on. CJ, I don't even know what Power Cruise USA is. I'm not familiar with that. I don't attend a lot of shows because I'm always testing. So that's TPS to it. I will get back. That's one thing I like about the Edelbrock VRS carburetors is they have provisions for TPS, which is kind of cool, and was not difficult for them to do. Am I holding back my 408 Ford AFR 205, 10.5 to 1, 242, 248 with a performer RPM? Yes. Should look for a Super Victor and give it all the torque and give up all the torque below 3,000. Well, you will be giving up torque production, but will you be giving up an amount that makes it so you can't spin the tires? Because it might be that you have an overabundance, but you'll definitely be losing power with a 408 with that head and that camshaft by not having a single plane manifold. When's the Jill H coming home? I don't know yet. That's not scheduled. But I want it to come home. Because I want to go out and dyno the V12 with Brian and James. Should we run the next test on the AMR XFI as a draw through instead of a blow through? 81% are saying yes, so that's pretty hip. We got 2 more minutes. It's late, It's like almost 9 o'clock here. I did fix my light though. Had to go in there with a pick and a screwdriver and not electrocute myself. And I had to bend the contact tab down a little bit, and then because it didn't want to contact the center on my swirly lights, my swirly temple lights. I wonder if this is. Oh, it does. That's interesting. I didn't even look at that till now. I just thought about that. There's evidence of arcing there because it was, just not touching. And so we had what we had there basically was plug gap. Interesting. Send me a picture and video of my friend's Ford inline 6 Falcon with a Thunderbird M90. Cool. Ever dyno scuba tank of compressed air? The guys from Compressed Air Supercharging have done obviously that times 1,000 with their compressed air supercharger deal, and it works amazing. Do you keep the chili bomb working in the draw-through setup? Well, that'd be a consideration. I've seen guys run intercoolers flowing fuel through them. I'm not a fan, but I have seen it done. In fact, with the guys at Westech had a boat motor there that was a twin turbo. Each one of them had their own draw through carburetor blowing into air to water intercoolers. And it worked, which You like the Super Victor. The Super Victor is your best choice for power, but on a Super Victor, isn't the Super Victor going to be, do they make a 4150 Super Victor, or is it going to be a 4500? And do they have a regular Victor? I thought that they only had Victor Jr. and Super Victor. Gasoline can get down to negative 100. Yeah, the KM, the charge air was very, very low on the compressor supercharging deal. They ran full timing on regular gas on 87 octane with boost and made lots of power. Because I think that the charge temperature was down near or even maybe below 0. One more minute. I'd like to see, I wonder if that data is still there. I could talk to Dale and find out. I'd like to see the charge temperature data. I don't know if, hopefully they weren't just using type Ks. I don't know how low the type K will go. When's your next live stream planned? Tomorrow. What turbo do you have in mind? I have the little RB32 from the Sprint, but I also have a GT20, a Garrett one. Autopsy first AMR, at least check the gear cooling oil. The oil is not going to be a problem. This was a contact problem. So I'm wondering if the bearings went out. What's the best torque cam for a 6-liter? Josh, send me an email and I got a cam for you. First of all, there's no such thing as the best cam, but I have a cam that will do what you want it to do. That is my email. Like I said, I do have cams available. If anybody's interested in some Airflow Research LS3 heads, I have those. They're brand new. I bought them from Summit. So I need to get rid of them because I'm not going to be using them. I actually have another set that we're doing something special with, but I don't need 2 sets. GT20 and an AMR500 compound would be good. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about doing on this motor, not on the Sprint motor, but on this motor would be cool. The Sprint motor would be cool also because it's low compression. We'll have a ported head and stuff, but we'll be able to make the power that we want with just that Garrett turbo. Yeah, I think that the Garrett guys gave this to me long, long ago when I was doing testing with it. Having the rotors rub on a blower is an outstanding achievement. I don't know if I look at it like that, but it's late. It's time to go, but I will see you guys all tomorrow. And tomorrow, I think I'm going to work on the LT1 video, camshaft, ported cylinder heads, Gen 2, other guys, LT1. Oh, so also I want to ask you guys, let me know really quickly. Should I make a playlist specifically for the Metro and the Sprint rather than just having it in the other guys? Should I make a dedicated one for that? Let me know. Flash up some answers. Because the Metro is going to get some testing done on it, obviously. There's some things that I want to try. I've never tried a camshaft, so we want to at least try the standard camshaft. And then the Hudson boys, I think, have some camshafts for me that I could try to run, which would be cool. Hudson boys, shout out to those guys. Shout out to the guys at Brian Tooley Racing and Airflow Research, Scat, and all those guys. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.